There we go. I think we are live and we are running. So if you can see me, if you can hear me, hello and welcome. If you don't mind, just pop it in the comments. If you're watching this and you're able to, and you haven't put it up on a big screen or something like that, pop in the comments your name, where you are in the world, company you work for, all that sort of stuff. It'd be lovely to see who's watching this live and who's joining us today. But yeah, first and foremost, thank you very much. I've been really excited about this all morning, really excited. Absolutely love training and coaching people on how to structure a cold call. I'm like an excited puppy. Yeah, woof in the morning, ready to cold call train and ready to help people become better SDRs. Ultimately, guys, cold calling is a key component of being a great SDR. I'm looking forward to helping you on that journey. With me today, I have somebody really special, Isheeta Abdullah, who you may also call Ishi, if you like, better known as Ishi in our business. Ishi is our training and resource manager here at AIR, has also been a team leader at AIR for several years prior to being our training manager, and she's going to be helping me support today and just guide me, give you a different voice, a different take, and help facilitate if you guys have got any questions as well. Jonathan Flynn, meow, good morning. I've got all the animal noises coming now. I've started a weird trend there, apologies. You can tell I'm excited. There we go, got Ryan in Dubai as well, fantastic. So somebody in Dubai and somebody in Devon already, bit of a distance. So why are we here, what are we doing? So my name's Owen Richards, I'm the founder and CEO of AIR Marketing. We are ultimately an outsourced SDR agency, amongst other things. That's our core, that's what we're known for. And we use the phone as our primary tool. So we've always used the phone as our primary tool. I'd like to think that we are masters of the cold call within the B2B space. And we are today sharing some of the things that we do, some of the things that we coach, some of the things that we teach internally. Who's it for? Well, anybody who needs to use the phone to book meetings or to set appointments for either their clients in an agency setting or for their AEs or their BDMs or whatever it might be in your organization. And what I'm going to do today is run you through a structure of a call template, a call structure that you can use fairly globally. Now, what I would say is that I'm not going to teach you any silver bullets. There's no magic to this. There's nothing in here that you might not be able to put together or already work out. It is not rocket science. What it is going to be is a really healthy refresher of some of the things that you know. But also, I'm hoping there's a couple of bits that really help you with the structure and the mindset and the way that we approach the cold call here at AIR Marketing. And I'm hoping that whilst you may not agree, you probably won't agree with everything that we talk about today, there'll be bits in there that you can pull out. And look, Ish, how fantastic is this? We've got Dublin, Australia, Sweden, Birmingham. Look at that. That's fantastic. London.
All over the world. It's brilliant.
Everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. Great to have everyone here. Guys, throughout the talk, please ask questions. We won't be able to answer them all. Ishi will help me because obviously I'll be focusing on talking a fair bit. Ishi will help me to bring any questions that are right in the moment up. We'll stop and pause for a couple of questions throughout, and if we've got time at the end, we'll answer as many as we can as well. Please do fire the questions over, and I think we'll get into it very, very quickly. Before we do, two things I want to say. One is today we are giving you information around B2B cold calling, where you have to generate a qualified meeting. And our philosophy, our sales philosophy here is based on permission-based selling, trust-based selling. So what we're not is a throw it in your face, hard old-fashioned sales rep. And what we're not is soft, right? We're somewhere in the middle, but we rely on building trust with prospects, building rapport with prospects. And look, morning from Herne Bay, my hometown, Alan Greening, look at that. That's where I grew up in Herne Bay, in sunny Kent, on the seaside town of Herne Bay. Sorry, a bit distracted there. So yeah, B2B, cold calling, qualified, trust-based. So you might be doing other things. You might be handling inbound, dealing with warm leads. You might be, you might be calling previous dormant accounts that already know you. So there are going to be bits in here that aren't quite right for you, but you can still pick bits out. Somebody from Mumbai there as well. It's fantastic. So that's it. I just want to give you the approach and where we're coming from with this. You'll have to take some of the bits that we give you and translate. And then finally, just a head note, and I'll wrap this up at the end. If you like what you see today, and if you feel like we might be a good organisation, number one, we're hiring, so that might be something for you to think about. But also, we run a referral scheme. If there's somebody you know who's looking for an SDR role, somebody who enjoys working on the phones and selling over the phone, then we do run a £600 referral scheme. So if there's somebody you refer into us via LinkedIn, I'll give you the details via email. Then you will earn £600 a day they start with us. So just a little heads up on that, something you can be thinking about. And my last request, guys, would be if you're enjoying this, please comment on LinkedIn, tag Air Marketing, tag myself, tag Isheeta, and tell people that you're enjoying it, because we are going to be running this as an ongoing series. I'm done with the scene setting. I think what we'll do now is we will get into things. I'm going to share my screen. We have got a bit of a presentation to run through. Don't worry, it is not death by PowerPoint, but it just gives you a reference point as we run through this. So let's get stuck in. First and foremost, what are we doing? Well, we're going to run you through the sections of our cold call script. We're going to look at the structure of that conversation, starting with our introduction. How do we introduce ourselves? What do we do and what don't we do? Because obviously that first impression is really important. Then we're going to look at our pitch. What do we actually say? How do we describe what the call is about? What don't we say? What do we avoid? And how do we pitch our offer and what we've got to bring to the table? Then we're going to look at what we call transition into question or discovery. So how do we get from our pitch into discovery mode? How do we earn the right to ask questions and learn about the prospect so that we can identify a pain point? And remember, we specifically coach around booking qualified meetings. There are other approaches where it's book a meeting at all stakes and get quantity of meetings. That's not what we're looking at today. There'll still be bits you can pick out, but we're really focused on generating quality meetings here at Air. And then finally, looking at the questions that you ask and then moving through into the close and how we wrap up. If we get time, we'll also look at objection handling and what we do once we book the meeting. Because, of course, what we want is to book quality meetings where people know what's coming next. In a virtual world, attendance rates of meetings from cold calls has dropped off dramatically. There are a lot more people that don't turn up. So what you do once you've got the meeting is really important. What I tend to see is sales reps running away. Quick, I've got the meeting, let's get off the phone as quickly as possible. What you want to be doing is doubling down on that relationship, doubling down on expectations, setting the right expectations on what's going to come next so that you increase those attendance rates. And that's actually a really important part of being an SDR. How to use this, and of course you can get this guide on our website and download it from our website as well. If we've got your emails, we'll happily send this out afterwards as well. If you've given us permission to use those in your sign up for this event. But look, ultimately, we recommend using a call guide, a script, whatever you want to refer to it as. We need to overlay that with common sense, with personality, with individual style. By using some kind of structure, it keeps you consistent, and then you can tweak as you learn. So it keeps you accountable, and it helps you to avoid what I call salesperson's drift. So if you listen to your cold calls 3 months ago and you listen to them today, and you're not using a reference point or a structure, they will be different, and you've no guarantee that's better. Sometimes it can be worse, and you can be performing worse and not understanding why. So having a record of what you're doing and a point of accountability can be really important. Whatever you do, practice what we teach you today over and over again. And whatever structure you decide to go with. Role play, practice. If you think about any elite performer in any field, they practice even when they're performing well. You don't find an elite footballer not practicing. Right? They still go and train 2, 3, 4 days, 5 days a week and then play 1, 2 days a week. They don't play, think they've got there, and then not look to maintain or increase that level. And remember, in everything I say today, I'm going to teach you things that you can say, but ultimately, none of it will work if it's not said in the right tone. Tone of voice, speed of speech, really critical. We'll talk through those things as we go through today. But coming across as confident, having your status up as being important without being arrogant, tone of voice, confidence, speed of speech, really, really important. And remember, one of the things that we talk about a lot is about what is our goal on the call. And I'm going to touch on that first. What is the mindset that we go into a cold call with? One of the things that we coach people is that your job as an SDR, making cold calls, is not to book meetings with everybody you speak to. You have to have a realistic expectation. give you some numbers. We might book a meeting with one in every, somewhere between 10 and 20 people we speak to on average across the organisation, depending on the sector, the offering, all those sorts of things. 80-20 rule. Some of the things that we do might fit outside of that, above and beyond, or below, but on the most part, that's the typical range. So if you're holding yourself accountable and judging your performance based on 3 conversations and no meeting, then, you know, realistically, you're setting yourself up for failure, and it's going to be really difficult to stay motivated and stay confident. So know your numbers and go in with the mindset that on every call, your job is to build rapport with the prospect, get them to open up, and find a fit. Is there a fit between what you have to offer, the problems that you solve, and the prospect's current situation? Because if there isn't, you're wasting your time talking to them. If they don't have the problem you can solve, sure, you can book a meeting, but your AEs, your BDMs, your founders, whoever you're booking those meetings for, aren't going to be overly impressed when they dig deep enough to find that, and they think, well, why have I sat this meeting? So remember, your job is not to book a meeting with everyone you speak to. You don't fail by not booking a meeting. You fail by not working out if there's a fit. Once you find there's a fit, you can go into sales mode. That's fine. And I think that mindset is really important. And we coach our guys not to go in thinking of yourselves as a salesperson. Go in thinking of yourselves as a consultant. Go in thinking of yourselves as somebody who wants to be curious and learn about their situation. And it will diffuse the pressure out of that. It will start to get you thinking like a consultant and not like a salesperson, because of course buyers don't always like to be sold to, and you get a different reaction from somebody who thinks they're being sold to from somebody who doesn't. So it's not to say we're putting the wool over their eyes, but just a little bit of a mindset that we need to be looking at, and disconnect from the outcome of the call. Don't be emotionally attached to the outcome of the call before it started. You can be emotionally attached if you work out there's a really good fit there and you fail to get a meeting. I think that's fair enough. Hold yourself accountable for that. But don't be emotionally attached to the outcome of the call before you even understand whether there's a fit there. If you're selling accountancy services and somebody's brother is their accountant, you know what? Even if you're the best accountant in the world, you can't break that family tie. They're going to keep using their brother. Don't be emotionally attached to the outcome of that. See success as you found that out. You found the fact out that you're not going to get a meeting from that person. There isn't a fit between their current situation and between what you have to offer. So the right outcome is a no in that situation, and to walk away as quickly as possible, get some time back, get on to the next call. And I think that mindset piece is really important. So I've set the scene. Let's get getting into the call. What I haven't done on this session is look at getting through gatekeepers, how to get through receptionists. We can do that in another session. Happy to post some content on that fairly regularly as well. So please do follow me on LinkedIn if you'd like to see some of the content that we produce. I'm looking at the introduction, and I'm going to start with the thing that you don't say. Okay? Now, there's a couple of options here on the screen. You'll start to read those as I'm talking, I'm sure. What we don't say is, hi, how are you today? Okay? We hear it all the time. It is, particularly in the UK, a very bad habit of ours. There's a couple of reasons why that doesn't work, as well as some of the things that we're presenting. Doesn't mean it never works. Nothing never works, and nothing works every time. You don't say, how are you today, because it's disingenuous. You don't care. Okay? You don't actually care how that person is. And we, as people being asked that question, also know that you don't care. And if you think about trying to build a relationship with somebody, gain their trust, earn their respect, if the first thing that comes out of our mouth is something that we don't care about, something that's disingenuous, something that's not authentic, then that's my first impression of you. And also, when you think about it, we've got somewhere between 7 and 10 seconds to make a first impression. The first impression we want is that I ask you a pointless question, well then go ahead and do that. But there are better ways to fill that time. If you think about the person that's on the other end of the phone, they've answered the phone to somebody they don't know. They're thinking, who is this and what do they want? How are you today? It doesn't solve either of those. So very quickly, you lose your 7 to 10 seconds, and your first impression is weak. And also, I'm sure you've experienced it if you're making cold calls. Now, if you say, how are you today, you get this awkward silence. Because all they're thinking still is, who is this? Why are they calling? Okay, so we're wasting space on a cold call. We need to be upfront, respectful, and straight in with something that adds value.
Yeah, and you'll know from experience as a person who receives cold calls, how many cold calls have you received where someone says, how are you today? And you think, another cold call. So we want to try and differentiate ourselves from other people making those calls.
Really good point. And we'll talk about differentiating yourselves all the way through this session as well. And I think that's a great point. You know, if everybody else is saying, how are you, you immediately get identified as a cold call. That's not to say we don't want that, but, you know, we can maybe bring that in a bit later in the conversation. So here are 3 options, and we're giving options in this because there isn't a right way. This is about style, personality, the way that you come across. 3 options that you can use. So option 1, hi Isheeta, Owen here calling from Air Marketing. We've not spoken before. I'm just hoping you can help me out for a moment. Now, obviously tone is important. There's different ways to say that, and you can tweak the words as much or as little as you want here. So hi Isheeta, my name's Owen. We've not spoken before, but I'm actually just hoping you can help me out for a moment. Now, the really positive thing about that is that we use the word help, okay? And psychologically, humans like to help. Just hoping you can help me out for a moment. We go down at the end of the sentence there, okay? So we don't go up, just hoping you can help me out for a moment. We say, just hoping you can help me out for a moment. Really calm, and we pause. The power of a pause in a cold call is incredible. We're inviting them into the conversation. The point of all of these is that we're inviting them into the conversation. We build rapport by doing things 2-way, by sharing airtime. We don't build rapport by one person talking. So we want to invite them into the conversation as quickly as we can. Here, what we've done, we've said who we are, where we're calling from, and what I want, which is I want you to help me out for a moment. So we've answered those initial questions, and now we're immediately inviting them into the call. It's quite honest, it's up front, and I think as we move through these options, we're starting to get a bit more honest. So option 1 is probably a more general method that we coach to everybody when they enter into sales. It's something that can be used fairly universally. Option 3 takes a bit more of a brave salesperson. Isn't necessarily right for every personality. It's certainly not right for my personality. But if you are a bit more to the point, bit more, bit more, I don't know, aggressive probably isn't the right word, but you know, you get the point. Then you might look at option 3. So option 3, and I'm skipping one here. Hi, Owen calling from Air Marketing. Look, I'll be honest with you. This is a sales call, but I'm hoping to have 30 seconds to tell you why I chose to call you today. The word chose there is really important. It makes it personal. It means that I chose you. You have to be brave because, you know, ultimately you might need to know something about them if they call you out on that. But you do get a little laugh from that sometimes. Quite a lot of the time people go, good on you, you're up front, you're straight, you're honest. And the key thing here with all of these is we're not putting the wool over their eyes. We're not wasting time with how we use it. We're being up front and we're being honest. Option 2 is kind of a blend of the two. So we're calling from Air Marketing. We've not spoken before. I'm just hoping to have 30 seconds to tell you why I chose to call today. Now, I'll tell you right now, none of these work every time. What I'm not giving you, as I said, is a silver bullet that's going to get you through to the next part of the conversation. What I am giving you is a structure. My preference is option 1. I've always used option 1 in my own style. So I would say, hey, Isheeta, it's Owen calling from Air Marketing, or I might actually drop the company name, it's Owen calling. Just so you know, we've not actually spoken before, but I'm actually just hoping you can help me out for a moment. Okay, and then I pause. It's almost like bullet points. Owen calling from Air, we've not spoken before, but I'm just hoping you can help me out for a moment. It's delivered with confidence. I'm assertive. I'm not rushing through it so they can hear it nice and clearly. And the tone is warm, but it's confident. And that would be my preferred choice. But you have to test them. You have to try these and work out the ones that work for you. But my advice to you would be, get rid of the how are you today. Get rid of the lack of structure. I don't quite know how I'm going to introduce myself. Pick one, practice. You will sound different in 20 times of doing it than you do the first time. And actually, my experience is when you try these for the first time, you feel a bit awkward. It doesn't roll off the tongue naturally. You have to do it a certain amount of times. But what you do get from these is a, yeah, sure, go ahead. Or, no problem. Yeah, how can I help? Whatever it might be. And I think the point there is we call it opening the yes gate. We're getting a positive response nice and early, and we're getting permission. And here's the important part here. We talk about permission-based sales. We're not just diving into our conversations, interrupting their day and assuming that we can take 5 minutes of their time to talk to them. We're getting their permission. And the beautiful thing about permission is that you've got the confidence to carry on in the conversation. They are choice-based in this conversation now. And I think that's a really important thing. Versus, I'm talking at you and I know you don't want to really do it. So that's some of the points and some of the things to think about in introductions. This isn't magic, guys, this piece of the conversation. Ultimately, you've just got to be consistent and you've got to practice something. Ish, I'm just going to pause there. Anything I've missed or any questions that we've had that are worth bringing to the table?
We had a really good point from Harry, who commented that he changed his "How are you today" when he was working from B2C to B2B sales. So obviously there's that shift in mentality and how you approach those decision makers. So that's, you know, that's key. Akmal asks, if they say, "How can I help?" what would you say after? And I think that's probably coming on to our next part, isn't it, Owen?
Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Harry. Akmal, yeah, I think the point is we're moving into the next part of the script here, and we're going to tell them. So it's very unlikely they will say that and actually want you to immediately say, well, I need this help, but you will get it, absolutely will get it. And the point is then, how can I help? What have we achieved? Well, we've achieved permission. They're now asking you a question. Guess what happens after a question? You get to talk. So the point here is that we're gaining permission. For me, the ultimate objective here is make the right impression, come across as professional, confident, assertive, that you've got a sensible status, that you don't sound like too much of a salesperson in the first point. Obviously, the third option 3 is a lot more sounding like a salesperson, a lot more upfront, a lot more straight. But get their permission. Get their permission to continue with the conversation. We want them to trust us. They will trust us if they know they're allowed to speak in the conversation, if they know they're allowed to ask questions. If they feel like you're just throwing stuff at them, they won't trust us and they won't give permission to carry on with the conversation. So great questions, great points. And I'm going to dive into what we might refer to as a pitch now. So this is where the core part of your script comes. And there's a couple of options. And again, it's one of those things where there's all sorts of approaches to this. For me, I really like the something that can be used without lots and lots of research. So you can hyper-personalize. You can absolutely go and spend 10, 15 minutes researching a company and then hyper-personalize this bit. Very hard for me to coach you on that in 2 hours. Really difficult to do, and given we've only got a bit on this. And my personal opinion is it's very hard to replicate, to train with new SDRs. What we're trying to give you something here is something that everybody can learn how to do. Okay, so it doesn't mean hyper-personalization isn't the way to go in your organization, in your market. But we're trying to coach you on something that's a little bit more generic, something that everybody can pick something from. So I'm with company X, so I'm with their marketing. We work with ambitious SaaS companies to help them achieve more pipeline and faster growth. Okay, so the first bit is I'm working with company name, or I'm with, or I'm from, whatever you might want to do there from a word perspective. And then we use something relevant. So if I'm talking to a SaaS company, I'm saying we work with SaaS companies. If I'm talking to companies who are at Series A in their funding, we work with SaaS companies who are at Series A in their funding. Or we're working with any company that's at Series A. If I'm selling into manufacturing or food manufacturing, we work with food manufacturing companies. Now, it doesn't matter if you also work with other manufacturing companies. The point here is to try and be as relevant as you can. Quick Google search, quick look on the website, whatever it might be, quick look on their LinkedIn, and you'll quickly work out what they do. And it saves you having to do loads and loads of research before call and allows you to get a reasonable amount of volume in. I think that's really important, particularly in the early stage of a salesperson's career, because the more conversations you have, the more you learn, the faster you learn. If you're spending time researching companies for 10, 15 minutes, and then you don't get to speak to the decision maker, I'd argue that's probably not the fastest way to ramp as a salesperson and to learn. So, earn the right to be hyper-personalizing later in your career, absolutely, once you really know your stuff. In the early stages, I'd be saying, look at getting as many conversations as you can. And this is a really nice way to give some relevancy. We want to come across as relevant. So, I'm calling from air marketing. We work with ambitious SaaS companies to help them achieve faster growth, or whatever that might be that you do within your organization. So if I'm an accountancy company, I might say we work with companies who are at Series A to help them to structure their finances in the right way. Now, what we want is short, sharp. We don't want to be talking at them, okay? We don't want this to be longer than 10 to 20 seconds. I hear people go, so we do this, we do that, we do this, we do that, we help. Too much. They don't care. And remember, the point in this part is that we're not telling them what we do. We're talking about the outcome. We work with SaaS companies to help them achieve X. What does the person I'm talking to care about? They care about themselves. They care about the outcome that you can bring them. Okay? So we generate pipeline. That's what we do as an organization, right across our whole organization. So we're talking about we help you to grow your revenue. What we don't say is we make cold calls on your behalf and we target your addressable market and we send them emails and we do this. They don't care at this stage of the conversation. What they care is what's in it for me. How can you help me? So option 1 is about the positive, selling the dream, I call that. Option 2 is looking at pain points, looking at challenges. And of course, you can blend these two things. So according from their marketing, we work with ambitious SaaS companies who are struggling to get their reps hitting target, or who struggle to get their reps to pick up the phone enough of the time. Okay, so again there, what I've looked at is possible pain points. Now, a bit of a gamble because we don't know what pain points they've got, but I think if you know your target market, you will know roughly the types of regular common challenges that they face, and you can back yourself a little bit there. It's not the end of the world if you get it wrong, because of course we're going to get through into a two-way conversation in a minute. The theme here is it's short and it's sharp and it's to the point. Okay? And we're trying to highlight either A, the opportunity that we can present for them, what's in it for them, what's the positive outcome of working with us, or B, one of the problems that we solve. And it might be an and/or scenario. You could blend those two. According from their marketing group, we work with ambitious SaaS companies to help drive more pipeline. And often the companies we're talking to are struggling with getting reps to hit target, or are struggling to get their reps to pick up the phone. Okay, so you can see that I've blended the two together. So you should be able to take your company and you should be able to know what your key problems that you solve are, and also know what's the opportunity, what's the end outcome of working together. And I think it's really important that you know that as an organisation regardless. So I've just got a message coming through. I'm on the screen here. Copy the slides. Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, no problem. Crap, that's in the way. There you go. So that's all gone. So look, guys, if you don't know those things, then probably your leaders are letting you down. Go and talk to your business. Understand what are the problems that you solve. You know, we don't want 10 problems in there. We want 1 or 2 really strong problems that you solve, and we want it in 10 to 20 seconds. Now,
Owen, I just wanted to ask, so you're an SDR and you have a script in front of you. How much do you think an SDR should stick to their script, and how much do you think we can, adjust?
Good question. So if it's my first day, I'm sticking to script. Right, and what I'm doing is adding linking words. You heard me earlier, I'm a killer for things like actually and obviously and those sorts of things, which is not good practice, by the way. But what it does is makes me comfortable, and of course I need to feel comfortable to feel confident. So I think you can personalize from little linking words and just the structure of the sentence. What I wouldn't be doing is removing points or adding points of substance. So that will be my take on it. And I think if you think you've got a sales team of 12 people, 12 SDRs, and they're all saying things in different ways, how can I control what works and what doesn't? How can I tweak the approach? And I think the point here is it's about control. If I'm looking at it from an organizational perspective, I want to know what works and what doesn't. I don't want to have 12 different ways of doing things and people getting inconsistent experiences. I think once you get further on-ish, you probably gain the confidence to blend into something a little bit more comfortable, something that's less structured. I still structure a lot, even today. I'm really structured. I'm working on scripts. I think you get a gut feeling over time when you've been selling for long enough, and when you can go away from it, when you need to, when that person's not responding. You can kind of almost hear it in their breathing sometimes, or in their little, those little noises that people make when they're listening. You can hear if someone's engaged or not. So I think as you gain more confidence and experience, you can maybe look to move away a little bit. But as I talked about earlier, salespersons drift. If you're changing all the time and you're not structured, what happens is you move away from what worked without realizing it. And I think that's a really important point here. So I would say structure is really positive, but being intelligent enough to read the situation and being able to make it natural is the key. Anything else?
Thank you. Yes, Scott's made a good point here, saying that with permission from customers, he found name dropping to be very effective. So that's that evidence of success. And that works really well for some decision makers to know, they've worked with so-and-so company in my sector. So that's a really good thing to drop in. Obviously, you don't want death by stats in there in your elevator or your pitch, but a little bit of name dropping in there can sometimes really help give you that, that upper hand.
Spot on. And let's think about it. Sales is psychology, right? We're trying to manipulate the way that people are thinking and feeling in the moment with our words and the sound of our voice and the points that we make. People don't like to be left out. I suffer from FOMO massively, particularly if it's a night out, but also business FOMO. Oh, there's this event and I didn't realise it's on. Everyone's posting and they're going to this event and I didn't know it was happening. Yeah, I've missed it. Damn, I've got FOMO. And I think if we can create that in a buyer's or potential prospects, in a prospect's mind, it can be a really powerful thing, but it's got to be relevant. You know, if I'm a company with 10 people in and you're trying to sell me something, there's no point in saying, oh, we work with SalesLoft or we work with Adobe, or so what? I don't care. Because if you work with Adobe, actually, you might be scaring me off, because if they can afford to use you, I probably can't as an SME. And I think it's about, yes, but you use it in a relevant way. Don't just name drop for the sake of name dropping, because it can be a bit of empty time. And I think I've talked about it a couple of times earlier, that empty space. You've got such a short period to make an impact, and you're wasting it by linking companies' names in they've never heard of or they don't care about. So yes, if it's relevant, absolutely.
Ideal. Thanks, Owen.
All right, now I'm going to move through to the transition piece. Guys, for me, this is one of the bits that I think when I go into internal SDR orgs in other organizations who consult and advise, 9 times out of 10, they miss this piece. They miss something that gets them from their elevator pitch into questions. Now, this is one of the pinnacle, one of the really important bits of permission-based selling to me. So we've got permission up front. If you think about the structure, I've got permission from you to continue the conversation within 10 seconds of us speaking. Hi, Isheeta, it's Owen calling from Air Marketing. Look, I know we've not spoken before, but I'm actually just hoping you can help me out something. Sure, no problem. Have to take it out. Okay, calling from Air Marketing. We work with ambitious SaaS companies to help them drive more pipeline in, and most of the people we speak to have got challenges such as salespeople just not being prepared to pick up the phone enough. All right, so I've done that bit. How long was that? 20 seconds? 25 seconds? Maybe I'm going a bit quicker because there's not a real person on the other end of the phone, but it's pretty short. This part is really important. Permission-based selling again, we're bringing people back into the conversation. Okay, so I've spoken again. Now what I'm doing is I'm inviting you back in. So again, I'm showing you that you can trust me. I'm being professional and I'm allowing you back into the conversation. Okay, so at this point, I'm saying I use option 1. Now, Isheeta, obviously I don't know enough about your situation to know if something like this would even make sense for you. So do you mind if I ask you just a couple of quick questions? But really short, and what I'm looking to do is get permission for you to continue into the next part of the conversation. There is an option 2 there, which is again a bit more of that braver salesperson mentality. So Isheeta, now I'm sure you're going to tell me that you've got most of this covered already, or that you don't suffer from any of those challenges that I've mentioned. But I just wondered if I could ask you 3 quick questions, and that will help me establish whether we can help or not. And if we can't, I'll leave you alone. Does that sound fair? Now, you can blend those 2 again, and feel free to put this into your style. So for the issue, I don't know enough about your situation to know if something like this would make sense. And being honest, I'm probably expecting you to say you don't have any of those challenges. But I was just hoping to ask you a couple of quick questions. All right, so I've just blended the 2 together there. Up to you. The point here is that we're inviting them back into the conversation. The beautiful thing about saying, I don't know enough about your situation, or I know you're going to tell me that you've got this covered, is we're almost giving the objection that they're going to give us early. Here, have the objection before you give it to me. I'm telling you what you're going to say. It's also really honest, okay? I'm not expecting you. I'm saying success for me in this conversation is not you saying yes. I'm okay with you saying no. It empowers prospects to trust you. It empowers them to feel comfortable in the conversation. And also by saying I don't know enough about your situation, it's honest. I'm allowing you to know that I don't think I know everything. I'm humble, right? I'm not here being a know-it-all. So there's loads of reasons why inviting you back into the conversation is a positive thing here. And we want a natural 2-way conversation. We're starting to get to the point where it's going to get natural. It's going to get intuitive because we're going to be starting to ask questions and we don't know what the next question is all the time, or we shouldn't. So we want it to start to form a natural conversation. So Isheeta, look, obviously I don't know enough about your situation to know if something like this would even make sense to you. So look, would it be okay if I just ask you a couple of quick questions? Now, there are 3 possible outcomes to this. Outcome number 1 is the best one. Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Now, the beautiful thing about that is that I've said hello, we've not spoken before, I'm honest and upfront. Can I talk to you effectively? Can I get you help? They've said yes, permission. I've then said, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is how I can help. And then I've said, can I carry on talking to you? And you've said yes. That gives me a hell of a lot of confidence. You can assume that if you've got a busy decision maker, C-level, manager, business owner, whatever it might be, head of sales, VP of sales, on the phone, they're busy, they don't have a huge amount of time. I've told you what I want from you, I've told you how I can help you, and then I've said, can I continue to have this conversation with you? And you've said yes. I mean, that should give you a hell of a lot of confidence going into the next part of the conversation. And you can kind of assume that if somebody's going to say no, sorry, if somebody hasn't got the problems, they're probably going to say no. So you kind of assume that you're digging, you're fishing in the right pond, you're digging in the right area. And I absolutely love that. You do not get that if you go straight into questions. But I'd also argue it's fairly disrespectful to go straight into questions. We help ambitious companies. So what do you do there? And I think, what gives you the right to ask me that question? In this case, we've got the right. We've got the permission. We've gained their trust. They're starting to see us as a peer, an advisor, and they're starting to let their guard down. They're not behaving as a buyer anymore or somebody who's being sold to. They're behaving as a peer, somebody having a natural, normal conversation. This part, for me, is one of the best, most powerful parts of our selling structure. It is absolutely something that when you miss it, I think it has a lesser impact. And I think you'd find it harder to sell, and you find it harder to get into discovery mode and get the prospect to open up because you haven't earned as much trust or as much right or built as much rapport to go and ask those questions. A really, really important part of it. I cannot stress enough how powerful this part of the conversation is. So let's walk it back through from the beginning. Hey, Isheeta, my name's Owen. We've not spoken before. I'm just hoping you can help me out for a moment. Sure, go ahead. I'm calling from Air Marketing. We work with ambitious software companies or SaaS companies to help them drive in more pipeline. And a lot of the companies we speak to are suffering with challenges like not being able to get their sales reps to pick up the phone enough. Now, obviously, I don't know enough about your situation to know if something like this would make sense for you. So, look, would it be okay if I just asked you a couple of quick questions? All right? Again, really short. I'm getting quickly into discovery mode. They know why, though. They know why I'm calling. I'm not leaving anything to, they know what's coming next. We're all comfortable going into the next part of the conversation. Ish, have I missed anything?
No, I just wanted to say that this part of the conversation can be quite daunting at first because you're opening yourself back up for rejection. You're saying, allow me to continue this conversation, but we have to remember that with the right decision maker, they will continue. If they have a level of interest there, if they're going to proceed with the conversation, they'll hear us out. And when they do, we know, great, there's a level of interest there and we can, continue that conversation, and they've given us that permission again.
And remember, what's the purpose of our call? What's our objective here? It's not to get a yes from this person. It's to find out if there's a fit between what we do and the problems that they have in the businesses, the challenges that they have, or the opportunity that they might be looking to achieve something in the business. At this stage, I don't know if there's a fit. So I'm not in sales mode here. If somebody's a no, if they're an absolute no, they don't suffer from those challenges, they've got too much pipeline, they're growing too quickly, they can't keep up with the capacity of the business at the moment. Do I want to book a meeting with them to talk about driving more leads into their pipeline? Does my AE want to sit in that meeting? Probably not. So my objective at this stage of the conversation is still find out if there's a fit. I haven't done my discovery yet, so I don't know if there's a fit. So I don't want to just get a yes, I want to get the right outcome. And I mentioned earlier, there are 3 possible outcomes and I only touched on one. Outcome 1, they say yes, great, confidence, I know they want to be in this conversation, and now they know what this conversation is about, and I know they want to be in it, that's great. Option 2 is that they say no because, oh look, thank you, but no because X. Now the beautiful thing about that is I'm now focusing or able to focus the conversation on what's important to them. So they're giving me an objection. Oh, thanks, Owen, but look, honestly, we're fine because we already have an agency to do this for us. Great. Now I know what are the barriers that I need to get over, what are the hurdles that I need to overcome to find a fit and to potentially get an opportunity out of this. I could be off talking about all sorts of stuff without realizing they're working with another agency. They've chosen to bring that to the forefront first. It's clearly important to them. It's an important part of our conversation. So guess what? I still get into discovery. I still get to ask questions, but I get to ask questions about the point that's in the way, rather than trying to find it out and trying to guess. So, Owen, appreciate it, but honestly, it's fine. We use another agency for this already. That's great. And now I'm into handling that as an objection. Absolutely fine. Ish, that's fantastic to hear. Tell me, how long have you worked at that agency for? Or tell me, you know, what do you like about working with that agency? Or tell me, if you change one thing about that agency, what would it be? And we'll get into objection handling a bit later on there. But you get the point. The conversation's going in the right direction. So we've actually achieved something and we're into discovery mode. Why did we want permission? We wanted permission to ask questions. And we've got that permission because they're allowing us into the conversation. So that's outcome number 2. Outcome number 3, now, this is a line that we really love here at Air. If you get a no, and you will get this, oh, no thanks, not interested. So there's 2 types of no. There's a no because and there's a no. Right? No because X gets me into discovery anyway. A yes gets me into discovery. Yeah, go and ask me questions. A straight no, you've had it, that awkward silence, no, not interested, thanks. But yet they don't hang up the phone. Right? A bit awkward. So here's the line that I would use in that situation. Grab your pen, write it down. So I would say, that's absolutely fine, Isheeta. Tell me, what stops you from wanting to have this conversation? Or another version of that is, what stops you from saying no, from saying yes? Okay, so why do we say that? Most underprepared salespeople will ask a question, why? Why? So why are you not interested? What are you not interested in? And if you think about where that phrase gets used most, it's with children. No, son, you can't have another chocolate bar. Why? And when you think about it, it's almost petulance. It's quite whingy, it's quite whiny, it's immature. The beauty of that, we want to find out why. We want to do that discovery piece. So Ish says to me, no, I'm not interested, thanks very much. Look, absolutely fine, not a problem at all, totally understand that. Just out of interest, what stops you from saying yes to having this conversation with me? It's inquisitive, it's curious, it's a really light tone. It's okay that you're saying no to me, I just want to understand it. And there's a really important way to get to that objection. What you then can get is the thing that's important to them. Look, the reason I'm saying no is because we've got an agency. We're using an agency. Guess what? I'm back to the bit before. Oh, that's fantastic. Really good to hear. Tell me about the agency. What do they do? You know, when you're into the discovery, you're into questions. Now, sometimes when you use that sentence, you'll just get a second no. No, look, not interested, thanks. Okay, it's no problems at all. Tell me, just out of interest, what stops you from saying yes to having a conversation with me? Oh, just not interested. Thank you. Bye-bye. Slam the phone down. Great, you've done your job. Right? Because what were we looking to do? We were looking to find a fit. That person is not going to buy from you. You found a fit and you found it quickly and you're moving on. You're not missing opportunities to handle objections because they're not giving them to you. So how can you solve that problem? You can't. So it's about speed of getting off the phone there. We think that circa approximately 30% of people in the B2B space will never say yes to a cold call. We have quite a lot of data around this where we speak to people across multiple campaigns with multiple reps. And there are people who say yes every time, or most times. They just love being sold to. They love learning about new products, or they're just not really saying yes. Depends on how you look at it. Or maybe we've got really good sales reps on those ones. I don't know. But there are also people who will never say yes. It doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you say, how you say it. They do not like being sold to. They don't want to meet with people they don't know. They don't want to learn about new stuff. They're closed-minded, they're grumpy, they're everything. Doesn't matter, right?
And it's just about us not taking that personally. And we have to remember they're not saying no to us. They don't know us. We're a complete stranger. They just don't want to be sold to over the phone, and that's fine. We can move on then, can't we?
And your job is to find those people quickly and get them out of the way. Get them out of the way. Move on, find the next. So, I don't know enough about your situation to know something like this will make sense for you. So, look, Ish, do you mind if I ask you a couple of quick questions? Yeah, fine. Confident in the discovery. No. Okay, Ish, that's absolutely fine, not a problem. Tell me what stops you from saying yes to having this conversation with me. Or no, because X, Y, Z, and then I'm into discovery mode. So either way, you kind of get clarity and you achieve your goal of the conversation by asking this point, by doing this transition piece. Because you either find there's not a fit, you get them out of the way, you find out the objection that they're going to bring to the table, or you get a yes, all of which allow you to continue with the conversation. And here's the thing, right? If I'm going to get an objection, I want it now. I want to know what's important to them. Because otherwise, if they say yes, go into discovery mode, I don't know what's going in their business. I could be asking questions on the left when actually the thing that's important to them is on the right. And I've got to work a lot harder to find that out. So you almost want them to bring an objection or give you a hint at this stage. So you've got two really positive things that can happen in this conversation. Doesn't mean you can overcome that objection, but we'll give you some tips on that a bit later on. And you've got a negative, and that's the mechanism for handling that. Because it either allows you to get back into the objection, or it moves them out of the way into not interested really clearly. To everybody here that's commenting on the recording, that sort of stuff, yeah, absolutely. If you signed up with your email address, we'll do all of that sort of stuff afterwards. You can download this presentation from our website, air-marketing.co.uk. You can go and download it, but absolutely we'll get this sent out, all that kind of stuff, as quickly as we can afterwards. And if we can get the recording out as well, we will do so. So, we've done our transition into questions. We've got permission again. We've got a yes or an objection, or whatever it might be, and we're going into discovery. Now, I don't have a slide for this, so I'm just going to keep this slide up for a moment, and I'm just going to talk to you about the questions that we ask. What I'd love for you to do, if you can, is pump into the comments some of your favourite questions to ask prospects. What are the things that you like to ask prospects? What are the things that you find work really well? Now, some 101 sales training, and I apologise if this is really basic, but we don't ask closed questions. We don't do it, okay? We're not at this stage. We can do that a bit later if we're into close and that kind of stuff, but at this stage, we're now moving into discovery mode. What I say to people is be curious, be genuinely curious. Don't make your questions a survey. Don't ask the same 6 questions in the same order. Listen to the answers that you're given and respond to those. Do verbal listening, make noises. Sounds silly, right? And we've got to remember, sales is a performance. If she's giving me information, I'm saying, yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, geez, oh, that's frustrating, isn't it? You know, I'm absolutely responding and letting Ish know through sound, through my voice, that I'm listening and I'm taking it on board. And if I just go question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they give me an answer that's something relevant, and I just move away from it and ask my next question in the order, I'm completely failing to build rapport. I'm completely failing to listen and show that I'm listening. Of course, being a good listener is a great skill as a salesperson and a great skill for building relationships. So no yes or no answer questions, no closed questions at this stage. We want to be asking questions that get the prospect to open up. Now, what I want you to do is think of an upside down pyramid for a second. The breadth of question is really important. What we don't do is make our first question something really challenging. Okay? We want to make it something that's really easy to answer, something that's really comfortable to answer. Okay? So, for example, I might throw in a really nice, easy question like, so just out of interest, how big's the sales team? Really easy. Now, what am I doing? I'm inviting them back into the conversation. I'm getting them to talk, and I'm asking something that they haven't got to think about. They've got to think about this. It's not difficult, and I'm not asking them something that's digging into something sensitive. So if I immediately said, so how many of your sales team are missing target, and what's the cause of that? I've got to really think about that. I've got to work hard. It's your first question. It's quite challenging. You're asking me something that's quite personal for us as a business straight away, right at the beginning of the conversation. So make it light, make it easy at the beginning. I think about pyramids, so fairly broad, and then I'm narrowing in as I find things out about the business. So how many people have we got in the sales team? Oh, we've got 12. Okay, fantastic. Out of those 12, how many are inside sales, SDRs, picking up the phone and using the phone? How many of them are in the field or further down the sales funnel? Again, I'm just being curious. I just want to understand the current situation. I'm building rapport. I'm having a natural two-way conversation. They've forgotten that I'm selling to them at this stage, by the way, because all we're doing is being natural. And it's an easy question to ask. Oh, so we've got 6 SDRs, we've got 6 AEs who are out on the road, they're booking meetings, okay, fine. And with your SDRs, how much are they using the phone? All right, so again, I'm pausing, I'm listening, but my question is related to the last question. This is one of the skills that you have to learn as a salesperson. You cannot do this by writing 10 questions on a piece of paper and following them 1 to 10. Right? Write them all down, absolutely. You know we believe in structure and using some kind of call guide. Have all those questions in front of you ready to go. You've got to pick the ones that are relevant and you've got to be intuitive. You've got to go where the prospect's taking you. And what we're looking to do is ask questions that find pain points, that uncover a challenge, something they might be suffering with. But if I immediately go in and say, so how many reps don't make enough calls? Quite challenging. So I've started with how many in your sales team, nice and easy, how many staff have you got, or what current system do you use at the moment, whatever it is, nice and light, nice and easy. What do you like about that system? What don't you like so much? And then I'm getting into the challenging stuff later on. Once I find something that could be deemed to be an opportunity or a challenge that they're suffering with, I need to stay on that point. And that's that point about the upside down pyramid. Start broad, come further in, get really pointy at the bottom. So tell me about a sales team. I've got 12 people in the sales team. Okay, great, no problems. How many of them are SDRs? How many AEs? Well, we've got 6 SDRs, 6 AEs. Okay, fantastic. In terms of your SDRs, how much are they charged for picking up the phone? Now, is it all about phone work, or are they using other channels as well? Yeah, they're using the phone, they use email. Okay, fine. What sort of targets do they have? They have X amount of calls per day, they've got to speak to that many people, they've got to send that many emails, they've got to generate that many meetings in a week. Okay, fantastic. Now, I've asked 3 or 4 questions. That's probably taken about a minute, albeit I did it in rocket speed, and apologies if I talk too fast, and I know that's a bad habit of mine. And I'm earning the right to ask more questions because they're happily answering. I get more and more confidence that they're going to ask my questions. So at this stage, they say, okay, fine. So out of those 6 SDRs, how many of them don't pick up the phone as much as you'd like? Nice open question. Now I'm digging in deeper. I'm getting to that pointy bit. And they might say, no, they all do. Okay, fine. I didn't find the pain point there. But he or she is still answering my question. So I can move on and ask another question. Okay, fine. So let's look at the email piece. What do you like about the emails that we send? Okay. How often do you get a reply? I'm getting percentages, or I'm getting whatever it might be. Okay. Out of your sales reps, how many of them are actually hitting targets in terms of the number of meetings booked per week? X. Okay. And is there a trend around those people? What's the trend? What are they doing differently to the people that aren't? So notice how these questions are coming off my brain here, guys, as I'm thinking, but I'm being inquisitive. I'm being curious. My goal is to find a fit. So the more questions I get to ask, the better. My goal is not to sell to them. I'm not telling them what we do. I'm not telling them how we solve these problems. I'm not telling them what their problems are. I'm just asking questions. I'm in discovery mode. I'm curious. Call it digging deep, right? I keep digging deep and deeper and deeper, and eventually I'll find something. And whilst the prospect's allowing me to do that, I'm going to keep asking questions. And of course, remember, the reason the prospect will be doing that is because you've earned the right, because you've shown they can trust you, and that they've been invited into the conversation several times. There is a certain amount of rapport at this stage in the conversation because we're trust-based selling, permission-based selling. We're not being a pushy salesperson. Now, let's assume I asked Ish that question, and Ish said, well, I've got a sales team of 12 people, but only 2 are hitting target. Now, we could go on and carry on asking questions about other things, but actually, I'm there. I found something. I found a potential pain point, something that I can solve. So what do? I narrow in on it. All right. So now I'm going to start asking more deeper questions about it. Okay, fine. So if you had to put your finger on 1, 2, maybe 3 reasons that only 2 of them are hitting target, what are they? What's going on? It's this and this and this. Okay. What have you tried to try and get them hitting target? How long have they been in the organisation? With the ones that are hitting target, what do they do that you see the others not do? Or maybe what do they not do? Okay. When was the last time you had more than 50% of your team hit target? Okay. What's this doing in terms of your revenue number? Where are you against target for the year? Bear in mind, I couldn't ask that question right on the top. That can't be my first question. But the point here is they're keeping asking questions, answering questions. So I'm going to keep challenging. I'm going to keep asking more and more, better questions that dig deeper into a pain point. So you can see how it starts broad and gets more narrow when I find the point. And I might not find the point for 3 or 4 questions, or 5 or 6 questions. That's okay, because I'm genuinely curious and I've got lots of questions I can ask about the situation. And obviously I'm using an example that we would use here at Air to sell Air services, generating more pipeline. Okay, if you are a software company and you are, let's say you're a sales enablement platform, your questions might be, how many people have got on the sales team? Okay, what platforms are they using? How many different systems are they using at the moment? What's the favorite system? In terms of their cadences, how do they write cadences at the moment? Oh, we use Excel, it's pretty clunky. Okay, fine, there's my pain point. I'm digging in, they're still using Excel. Okay. What stopped you from looking at a sales enablement platform? Oh, cost budget. Okay, fine. When you say cost and budget, what do you mean? What's the sort of expectation around pricing and that kind of stuff? If they say, how much time do you think that they waste in Excel filling in manual entry rather than it being automated? How many prospects can they get through a day using Excel? And I'm starting to see things that I can sell around by asking those questions. And we can go through lots of different examples in that, but I think you get the idea. The point here is that we start broad, we ask really easy to answer questions, questions that are comfortable, questions that we know they know the answers to without thinking. And then we dig deeper and we get more narrow. Ish, go.
I think a lot of mistake a lot of SDRs make as well is you hear a pain point, someone will say, look, what I'm using at the moment is just not cost effective for me. And we get excited and we want to go straight for the close and we think, great, an opportunity here. But what we want to do is, like Owen said, ask those follow-up questions, dig a little bit deeper, build that picture up, make it a really qualified appointment for our clients or for us, whoever we're booking it for. You know, just don't stop there. Once we uncover that pain point, ask a little bit more about it.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not a race. So statistically, we double our chances of booking a meeting with somebody if we keep them on the phone for more than about 6 minutes. That's what our data tells us. It will be different in different organizations, of course, but I guess the theme behind that data is the important bit. The longer you keep them on the phone, the more they trust you, the more relationship you build, and it also reflects in things like attendance rates on the next meeting. So you can book a meeting in 2 or 3 minutes, right? But are they the best meetings? Do you really know they're qualified? Do they really know what's coming next? And you've really got to think about that sort of stuff. So yeah, really good points. It is not a race. In your job, your objective is to find if there is a fit. Is there something I can do to help this organization? Have they got the problems I can solve? Or are they looking to achieve the thing that I can empower them to achieve? Unless I ask enough questions, the right questions, and unless they open up to me, I can't find that out. Therefore, I don't know if the right thing to do is to book a meeting. So that's all we're doing in this part of the conversation. Really be curious, be genuinely curious to understand the situation. If you've got a prospect answering questions, lucky you. You've earned the right through the part that you did before that, through the structure of the conversation, being respectful, being polite, being upfront, being honest, inviting them into the conversation, earning their trust, earning their respect, all that sort of stuff. You've got great rapport with them at this stage. Enjoy it. Stop thinking about yourselves as a salesperson. Think about yourselves as an interviewer, a consultant, somebody who wants to better understand the situation. And then the conversation will be far more natural, will flow. But of course, I'm going to use a really bad analogy now. Once you find that pain point, dig into it, right? Let's be fair, we are salespeople. We're here we're playing a role early in the conversation, but we need to book as many good meetings, not as many meetings, as many good meetings as we can. So if I've got a little bit of a burn on my arm or a little bit of a cut on my arm, and you find that, we want to fix it, but we need to poke it enough to make sure they realize it's painful enough that they need to fix it. Okay, so that's where we dig in with those questions. We say, okay, fine. So what does that mean? So if you're not hitting target, what would that mean going into next quarter? Well, actually, potentially, we might have to make some redundancies. We might have to let some people go. Okay, fine. What does that mean to the business? What if we tried to fix this problem? Why didn't it work? All this kind of stuff. I'm being curious, but I'm getting them spending more time thinking about this problem in their business. Yeah, do you know what? We're not generating enough pipeline. I might need to do something about this. Ishe's asking really good questions and making me realize how important this is. Their brain is ticking through that conversation with the questions you ask. And all you're doing is getting them to realize that they've got a problem more than they did when you started the conversation. And remember, when we're having these conversations, it's not about you finding out that there's a problem and you identifying it. It's about the prospect realizing that. It's about the prospect's emotional journey in that conversation being, I wasn't thinking about this problem. Now I'm really thinking about this problem and I can do some help fixing it. If you go on that journey alone, it's irrelevant, right? It's pointless. It's all about helping them get on that journey. So, go on, Ish.
I'm just having a look at some of the questions people have put in the comments. So Hannah's put that she likes asking what projects people have on at the moment because they like being able to show off what they have going on. And you're so right, Hannah, we all have egos on us. So people love talking about themselves. So, asking, as long as we're asking the right questions to the decision makers, they will really open up to you because people love talking about themselves at the end of the day.
Love that. Really, really good point. And feel free to dive in if there's any good questions out there. I can see a lot of the comments of people wanting the presentation, that kind of stuff. But I think there's a lot of stuff on this. I'm just trying to keep up. So Billy Brooks, would you still try other people from the same company despite this one saying no? Short answer is yes, absolutely. Depending on who the first person that said no was. I think if you've got an MD, CEO who's selling into SME, they've got 15 staff, they're probably sat across from each other or they collaborate a lot, might be a bit of a risk. In enterprise or mid-market, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've got an example of it this week where our SDR, so somebody doing this job, selling this script that I'm talking about, spoke to a CMO who said no, and immediately then spoke to the CEO the same afternoon and got a meeting with the CEO. So it works. Yes, absolutely. Thanks for the feedback, Ryan, saying loving it so far, really helpful, really appreciate that. And guys, if you do enjoy this, to say if you can post about it on LinkedIn, tag the company, tag myself in, tag Isheeta, and really appreciate that, because we're trying to drive more people into these sessions, and we will diversify the sessions as well. So we've earned the right to ask questions. We're asking our questions. We're into discovery mode. We might find in discovery mode that there's nothing, that there is no opportunity. You know what? There's nothing wrong with saying, I've done my job. I don't know who can help you. You know, how about I take your email address and add you to our email list, or add you to our send you something over just to keep on file for the future. Thanks for being honest with me. Thanks for being upfront. That's okay. You've done your job. You've found that there's no fit. And I think the fact that you've asked a lot of questions, but actually, the reality is there's one or two things that likely happened there. Either they've not opened up to you. Okay, so you probably haven't been honest, which maybe needs to look at tone, structure of conversation. Did you earn the right for them to open up, or maybe they're just guarded as a person? Potentially, you've not asked the right questions, or you've not asked enough questions, of course. And I think the other point here is that they did say yes to carrying on and asking these questions. They did know why you were calling, so maybe they're being polite, but maybe we missed something in there. So just have a think about that. But look, we do sometimes find they are just being polite and there isn't a fit and we can't help them. Cool. So how are your SDRs performing? Yeah, they're all performing really well. Everyone hits target. Okay, fine. What's your biggest challenge at the moment? Well, just keeping up with the amount of pipeline. Okay, cool. We drive pipeline. Bit of a mismatch there in terms of fit. So you get the idea. But let's assume that there is something in there, right? Hopefully the prospects realise it as much as you have. Remember, the job is that they realise it, not that you do. So at that point, we're probably going into some kind of close. Now, a couple of things on this. Remember that the close should be natural, all right? It should be something that feels like it's right for both of you. If I've asked the right questions, and Isheeta has said to me, yeah, my SDRs don't hit target. Yes, we don't pick up the phone as much as we would like. Yes, it's a pain in the arse. Yes, it's a problem for the business. You asked what's that going to cause? Well, it's going to mean we don't hit target, which might not mean that we can't get funding for 6 months later, or that some of the team has to be let go, or whatever. I've got enough of a problem, I've opened up to that, then it's going to feel pretty natural. If the answers have been fairly, no, we don't have that problem, and I go, oh, do you want to meet? Again, we haven't brought them to the party on understanding that there's a pain point there, so that won't feel natural. And I think you can usually tell. And I look at this and say, well, look, are they engaging with your questions still? Can you identify a fit between the services that you offer, the things that you can do to help, and what the problems that they've got? Can you help them? And is their problem important enough that they'll want it fixed? And I think you can tell from that conversation. And assuming you can answer yes to those things, or mostly you can answer yes, I think you're well within your rights to start to book a meeting or a demo, or whatever it might be that's in the next stage of your process. So at that point, I'm making a recommendation. And I think this is really important, guys. You never ask for the meeting. It's a recommendation. Look, Ish, from what you told me, you've got some of these things going on. I really think that we can potentially help you with this. What I'd like to do, or what I'd recommend, is that I book a time with so-and-so to run you through this for 30 minutes. When's better for you? Wednesday or Thursday next week? Which day? I'm being assumptive with that close, right? So this is where we turn into salespeople. We move away from consultant. We've identified the pain. We've done our discovery. We've identified that there's something that we can help with. Do you know what? I'm letting go of my consultant mindset here, and I'm turning into sales mindset, because now I need to book a meeting, right? I've got Ish.
Owen, why would we give them an option of days rather than saying, when are you free, for example?
It makes it easier for prospects, first and foremost. That doesn't do the thinking. You've probably got some parameters you need to work with anyway. So when you're free makes them do the thinking. They've got to go, oh, I better look at my diary. And they can go, 3 weeks. And you lose control. What I want is to book that meeting for as soon as possible. So retain control. All of this is about controlling the structure of the conversation ultimately. Retain control. If it's a Thursday today, I'm saying, so Ish, I genuinely think we can help with some of these problems. You told me they're suffering with this, there's a challenge there, that's not working, you might end up hitting target. I think we can help. What I'm going to recommend is that we put 30 minutes in the diary just to show you how we might be able to help you with this. Would tomorrow or Monday be better for you? Right, so I'm being straight on. I want the next day or the day after as quickly as possible. You can tell me it's later, that's fine, but I don't want you to guide me 2 weeks down the line. I also don't want you to think too hard, because I need to just close this off at this point in time. So that's the logic behind it. There is, of course, the option to trial close, or what I call temperature check. All right, so let's say I'm talking to Isheeta. The world is in black and white, right? Not every prospect opens up to us as we would like to. They don't give us everything. And you can be sitting there thinking, I think there's something in this. They're still answering my questions. They're a little bit guarded still, you know, but they're not saying they don't have the problem. They've allowed me to continue with the conversation. I found out a few little bits that might indicate a problem. I get the sense that they don't want me to ask any more questions. You know, you can sense that in the conversation. But I'm not yet sure that if I try and close this, they're going to say yes. Now, you can just go and try and close. That's fine. All right, absolutely fine. But it's not as compelling if I can't say, look, I can see you suffering from these problems, or I can see this is happening, and I think we can solve it, because I haven't got that information. So a temp check or a trial close is really nice here. So Ish, look, sounds like there's a couple of bits going on. We talked about this and we talked about that. If I could show you a way to solve those problems, or if I could show you a way to achieve X, Y, and Z, is that something you'd be open to spending 30 minutes just taking a bit more of a look at? Right? Now, the beautiful thing about that is that we're able to get a yes, and then we just close the meeting. Cool, we're confident, we know. Or we get, I'm not sure, because we get some kind of feedback that allows us to get back into discovery, and we know we're not there yet, and know I've got to ask more questions. Okay, so it's a nice way of trying to get a sense of whether you can close it without actually trying to close it. Because if you try and close it, it's a no, it's very hard to come back from that at times. So there's a bit of a psychological piece around that. You need to know that you're ready to flip into sales mode, basically. And that's, again, quite a consultative question, quite an open conversational question. So you make the decision on whether you're trial closing, temperature checking, or whether you're straight to the close, based on how compelling you think the case is around their pain point or around the thing that you think you can solve for them, or the opportunity that's at hand. And then we move through to that close. Ish, any questions or anything you want to add?
Yeah, Owen, I just wanted to ask, what kind of mistakes do you see sales reps making in their close that can, you know, make it so that the meeting doesn't close?
I think the biggest mistake is people try to close too early. So it's not in the close, but it's when they do it. They ask 3 questions, they find a pain point, and they're in and trying to close. Or in some cases, they're closing before they've done any discovery. They're just trying to book a meeting. I'm not a fan of the sales calls. I know people like Connect and Sell are fairly big on this. They can have 20 seconds of your time to tell you why I called. I wanted to book a meeting with you. When's best in your diary? And it's like, whoa, hang on a second. No qualification, no quality of meeting. I know that they would argue that they then go and do discovery afterwards. But actually, do I want to give up a meeting if I'm a CEO at that point without knowing anything, without going on that journey? I don't think, for me, in my selling style, that's the right permission-based, trust-based, building rapport kind of approach. And it's not conducive with our brand either. But look, everybody's different. So I think closing too early. And I think the other thing is a lack of confidence, a lack of surety. You've got to be assertive. You've just spoken to them and identified that they have a problem that you can solve. You're the expert now. So Ish, look, what I think we need to do is, it's that kind of phraseology. What I think we need to do, what I'm going to recommend is, versus, hey, would you like to maybe, that kind of flaky, and people lose it at that stage. So timing and confidence and being assertive lead the way at this point in time.
Yeah, it's that tone of voice piece, isn't it? If someone says, "Oh, would you be okay to have a meeting?" It doesn't sound like someone you want to buy from.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There's a really important thing around tone here, and you need to be careful of this. Don't get too excited, right? You've been calm and you've been really, all the way through, you've been really professional. You can sense you're about to get a meeting and you turn into a 12-year-old in a sweet shop. It doesn't work, guys. You've got to calm down. I know you're going to get a meeting. I know I'm going to get a meeting in my head. People on the sales floor that can hear me can hear this conversation going, and I can lose this by suddenly turning into a really hard-nosed salesperson, or a 12-year-old trying to, okay, right, let's go, get a meeting. Just calm, be cool. This is normal. You book meetings every day. Even if it's the first meeting you've booked in a week, don't let the emotional piece get in the way. Keep calm, keep cool, and keep that kind of that status of I'm professional in there. You can do the exciting bit afterwards. Book a meeting, go run around the office, go do high fives, whatever you want to do. That's fine, but do it when you put the phone down, not on the stage. So that's another thing.
Yeah. We've got a question from Fatlam that says, "How would you feel about asking permission?" Do you feel, Owen, that when you are assumptive in the close, this could potentially be in conflict with your trust or permission-based approach?
I think you've earned the right for it, is my answer. So yeah, I think you could argue that fairly. And I think what we're talking about is a structure that works here. And I think you have to play multiple roles in the conversation. So, you are different people at different parts of the conversation. So, yeah, I think absolutely you could argue that, but I think this is where you move away from trust. So, if I trust somebody, they can still make a recommendation and be assumptive, right? So my best friends would be like, "Are you coming for a beer tonight?" "Yeah, okay, all right, I'll meet you at the rally at 7 o'clock, right? Because they know me well enough to know I put the kids to bed and then I'll come out. I can't come out before that. And they know me well enough to know the rally's around the corner from home. So, can they be assumptive and get away with that? Yeah, absolutely, because there's trust there and there's enough rapport that they can do that. I think if you do it without the permission-based bit before, yeah, okay, probably the wrong approach. So, look, I think at this point we've got to play the role of salesperson. We've got to flip out a consultant, and for me, we've got to put the nail in the coffin. We've got to get this done because that's my job. Ultimately, the objective of the call in the first place is to find if there is a fit. Once I've found that there's a fit, my objective changes. My objective becomes a book meeting. Okay, and I think that's the mistake that a lot of salespeople make. They go into the call where the objective is book the meeting. No, the objective is find the fit. Once I've found the fit, now I turn into salesperson. That's my view, and ultimately you've got to be able to sell. You've got to be able to sell a concept and an idea. But I think it's a really good point and something to consider. And I can see Fatman's second question there about how would you feel about asking for permission in this case, as well or instead of being assumptive. That my opinion is you change character at this point. That doesn't mean I'm a different person, but my objective has changed. So I would be looking to be a bit more assumptive and a bit more. If you want to go down that route, absolutely. And I think you can get a sense of the person you're talking to and what you can and can't get away with here. And it's that sort of intuitive reading of the situation that differentiates great and good salespeople, I think. Isheeta, do you want to add anything on that, or is there anything else?
There was a question from Scott that I missed, which is tied more into the questioning piece. So if a prospect has pains, it's sometimes good to show empathy and demonstrate you understand their pains and have experienced similar issues. How do you guys feel about this?
Yeah, I think spot on, Scott. Really good point. I probably missed this point, that when we're asking questions and we're getting answers, bringing relevant things to the conversation before you ask the next question is a really great way to continue to build that rapport. So, Scott, thank you. And I'll give you an example. So, how many SDRs got? All that kind of stuff. How many are not hitting target? 2. Oh, okay. Do you know what? I actually see that fairly regularly. What's the biggest reason that they're not hitting target? They don't pick up the phone enough, or they don't do this, they don't do. Well, I think the honest answer is we've got a lot of junior reps that just started with us, and they're not ramping as quickly as we would like them to. That's something they could bring to the table. I've made that up, and I would respond to that by saying, do you know what? It's really common. Like, it's genuinely really common. I get that. It actually took us 6-9 months to ramp our last SDR. We thought it would be a lot faster than that. What we learned from that was this, and this. Tell me out of interest, and I'm into my next question. So I've actually added value to the conversation. I've brought expertise. And I think there's a really important part in here, and all of this, which is, bear in mind, at no point have I said what we're going to do for you still. I think the point here is that I've not said, by the way, we'll make the cold calls for you. I've never flipped into sales mode in that consultative piece. I've been consultative all the way through. And Scott, I think that's a great way of doubling down on that consultative mindset, that you're bringing value in and you're making points from an expertise standpoint. So well done to you. Really, really good point.
I think as salespeople, we have an agenda, don't we? And we forget to empathise and be human and realise that these are real people and real businesses. So, and it shows that understanding from our perspective and our experience if we show that empathy. So yeah, 100%.
Agreed. And remember, it's not our job to get us there in our minds. Our prospect is the most important person in this. We need them to go on a journey. So that empathy, sympathy, all that kind of stuff will help with that. So spot on. Really, really good points. All right. So we've closed our meeting. Well done to you. What do we do next? So we've obviously going to get off the phone at some point. But in my view, you've got to do some things first. This is critical for attendance rates. I talked about it up front. If you want people to turn up to the meeting, particularly if it's more than 48 hours away, you need to make yourself really memorable and you need to set the right expectations. So I would always do a wrap up. So look, just quickly, Ish, before you go, just to summarize what we've talked about today, I'm going to speak to you with my AE 2 o'clock on Friday next week, because you're away until Wednesday. And what we're going to do together is run you through how we may be able to solve some of those problems for you that we talked about, the fact that your SDRs aren't hitting target, the fact that they're not picking up the phone enough, all that kind of stuff. And I'll run you through some ideas and things that we might be able to bring to the table to help you to fix that across that call. It'll be myself and my AE Harry on that call. And I don't know if there's anyone else you want to invite to that call with you, Ish. Oh yeah, actually, it would be good to get my marketing in. Okay, cool, fine. Hey, what a value add. You just got 2 people, 2 influencers, 2 decision makers into that call. No problem. So look, what I'm going to do next then, just to clarify, I'll send a confirmation email. Could you accept that for me today? Yeah, no problem. Happy to do that. Okay, cool. Is there anything else that you would need from me between now and next Friday? No, I'm happy, I'm good. Or actually, could you send me something like this? Yeah, absolutely happy to do that. And look, what I might do also is just give you an email the day before just to remind you, is that okay? Yes, it is. Cool. I'll spend 2 or 3 more minutes on the phone to them if they're giving me that time. And look, sometimes you get prospects, you know they need to get off the phone. Right? They've given you enough time. That's fine. Just quickly rush through it. But if they're there and they're still talking, they're comfortable, enjoy it. Double down on the rapport, double down on the relevancy at this point in time. And then at that point, I'm going after the call and I'm sending a personalized thank you email, summarizing the points, reminding them of what it's about. I'm sending my calendar invite quickly, straight away. I want to accept it almost immediately. Go and connect with them on LinkedIn. A little personalized message. Thanks for your time today. Really good to talk. Enter the details into CRM there and then while you've got the notes fresh in your mind. Remember to schedule your reminder call or SMS or email or whatever it is you do the day before, and make sure you've got those notes. And when you copy your AE or your BDM or your founder or whoever it is that's sitting in that meeting, or if it's you, when you put those notes into writing between the prospect and yourself, it's really powerful. So, hi Ish, really good to talk today. Here are my notes from our conversation. You've got 12 SDRs, you've got this, only 2 of them are hitting target, not all of them are picking up the phone as much as possible. Agenda for next meeting is that we'll talk you through some of the ideas that we've got, some of the things that we can do, and run you through some case studies on how we've helped some other organisations similar to yours. Going back to our point earlier, you might even drop a case study in there. I've dropped a case study in, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you next Thursday. You should also have a calendar invite, and I've connected with you on LinkedIn. I'll give you a call the day before just to remind you. Boom. I mean, in terms of professionalism and process, people are turning up to those meetings. I tell you right now, difference. You work bloody hard to get somebody to say yes to a meeting, and we can ruin it by rushing off the phone at the end of it. Really important, guys. How you do it and what your process is up to you, but it's really important that you do this bit after you've got agreement, even if it's just a short, quick one, because you can sense that they can get off the phone. All right. Now, we are rocketing towards the end, but before we get there, I want to touch on one of my favourite bits of cold calling training, which is objection handling. So here at AIR, we have a formula that we use. Now, it's very, very rare that the example of today's call that I've given you that just goes smoothly, where they open up to you, they don't say anything that might mean that you can't help them, and then you get a meeting. It's very rare that happens. Right? We all know that we have to handle objections. And I actually gave an example earlier when we asked for permission to ask questions. Ish, because they don't know enough about your situation to know if something like this would make sense for you. So, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? And Ish says, look, honestly, we're fine because we're using an agency at the moment, and yeah, we're happy with their performance. Great, I've got an objection. So here's our formula: diffuse, statement, question. DSQ is what we refer to it internally as. This is something you can do globally across any objection. So what is it? Well, we diffuse the situation. We bring a positive thing to the conversation. They brought a negative, we're counteracting that with a positive. So our diffuse might be, that's absolutely fine, not a problem at all. All right? I'm saying to you, I hear you, but it's okay. Really important. Okay? Then I make a statement. My favorite global statement that you can use with any objection is this. I diffuse it and I say, that's not a problem at all, absolutely fine. And actually, if I'm honest, most of the people I speak to say exactly the same thing. Now, that sentence can be used whatever they say. And the beautiful thing about that is it makes them feel like it's normal, like you're okay with it, you're not getting put off your pattern, and it makes them feel comfortable very, very quickly. You could almost say it with a bit of jest. You know what? I've had 10 people say that to me today. I totally get it. Almost everyone I speak to says exactly the same thing. And the best bit about it, it gives you time to think. Because if you do that as a regular pattern, you don't have to think about what to say next. And what I see certainly early stage sales reps do when they get an objection is they panic. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. Oh, you throw me an objection. Be prepared, guys. You know it's going to come. So I would always respond to an objection. Not always, 90% of the time. There are times when you feel like you know what to say and intuitively you do something different, but it's just absolutely fine. Honestly, it's not a problem at all. And if I'm honest, most of the people I speak to say exactly the same thing. Tell me out of interest, and then I go into my question. So let's take that objection, and feel free to throw your objections up on the screen, guys, and I'll do my best. So Ish gives me that objection about using an agency. I say, Ish, you know what, absolutely fine. I totally get it. Look, if I'm honest, most of the people I speak to say exactly the same thing. Tell me, just out of interest, how long have you worked with that agency for? Now, here's the key. Remember that upside down pyramid? I've asked a really broad question because I want to make it easy for them to answer. I want to invite them back into the conversation. I want to create a two-way example. What I'm not doing is challenging. Why? Right, I'm not going, Ish, it's absolutely fine, no problem at all. Look, if I'm honest, most of the people I speak to say pretty much exactly the same thing. Just out of interest, why do you use that agency? Why are they good? What if they're terrible? We can do better than that. I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to continue a two-way open conversation. So guys, please comment. If you want to put your objections on the screen, things that happen regularly, you're welcome to do that. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples while they come up if you get any. So here you go. First one, we're already using an external company. Here's an example. That's great, Ish. Absolutely fine. To be honest, most of the people I speak to say the same thing. And what I'm not expecting you to do is tell me you'll change supplier based on one conversation that we've had. Now, that's a double statement. That's fine. Not a problem at all, right? I'm just leading into my question. Tell me if you could change one thing about them, what might that be? Right, a bit more challenging is a question, and it's about the way that we tone that. If you could change one thing about them, get a magic wand and you wave that magic wand, another of my favorite questions, what would you change about them? Right, it's nothing dramatic, easy to answer. Does get them thinking in this case. Perhaps a bit more challenging than what the example I gave before. Here's another objection. Look, we tried this before and it didn't work. That's fair enough-ish, not a problem at all. There's my diffuse. You know what? You're not alone. I hear it all the time. It's a real shame. It's a real disappointing thing that goes with our sector. There are a lot of companies out there that aren't giving a great experience. I'm making a statement. I'm sympathising. I'm empathising, like we talked about earlier. Tell me, out of interest, when you engage with that supplier, what was it that drove you to do that? Right. So again, I'm being curious. I'm inviting them back into the conversation. For last time, we don't have budget for it. Look, that's fine. I totally understand. Most of our customers didn't have budget set aside when I spoke to them, and it's very normal for us that there's not like a budget reserved for that kind of stuff. Statement. Question. Tell me, what would have to happen for this to become important enough for you? Or tell me, and I'm back into my discovery questions, whatever that might be. All right, that tell me is a really nice way to just transition back into questions, by the way. So there's 3 examples, put all objections into money, time, using somebody and I'm covered right now, or we've done it before and it failed, or something like that. And that diffuse statement question, I'm just going to put it back up here, DSQ is the important bit. So we diffuse the situation, take the pressure away, we make a statement that makes them comfortable, and shows some level of expertise and knowledge, and then we ask an open question that simply gets us back into discovery.
When I train new starters, something I come across a lot, especially if they've come from other companies, etc., is they will diffuse and they'll go straight into a question. So they'll say, I can certainly appreciate where you're coming from. Can I just ask? And straight into questioning piece. Why is it important that the statement is there?
Well, I think there's 2 things for me. One is that it gives you thinking time to get the right question. Okay, and I think the second is that well, there's 3 things. The second is it gives you an opportunity to show some expertise and some knowledge, give credibility. And the third thing is, go back to that example I gave about children asking why. It's kind of like, we've got to earn the right to ask the question. We've got to move these things through fairly organically, not rush the conversation. Got to show that you can be trusted. So I think if I say, no, that's absolutely fine, what's that? It's almost like, well, hang on, I've given you an objection, you've just ignored it. You've not taken it seriously. So it just adds a different layer to it. Here we go. We've got a question from Holly. Holly D, thank you, Holly. How would you answer, how much is this going to cost? Right. Great question. Let me think about this. So I think the answer is always going to be it depends. And one of the things that will depend on is your company policy around pricing. I would always prefer to book a qualified meeting. And one of the qualification criteria might be that you know that they can afford it. And sometimes you can make that assumption. You know, if I'm selling into Microsoft, they can probably afford whatever it is they're going to sell. If I'm selling into SME, I might want to check. If somebody asks about cost, it very much depends on what we're trying to sell, but I would be looking to put some ballpark figures. Look, it very much depends on what you're looking to do. Our clients typically spend somewhere between X and Y with us, depending on what it is they want, how we can help, the solution they go with, that kind of stuff. But honestly, what we're going to do is run through that in the next call, and we'll need to know a little bit more about what you want before I can give you the right sort of pricing. Is that okay? And I'm just closing it off into a yes. So I would not avoid the question. I think the worst thing you can do is say, oh, look, we'll talk about that in the next call. You can take that approach, you know, and it doesn't always fail. We can talk about that in the next call if that's all right, because there's more we need to know about your current situation before I can give you an accurate pricing. I think the middle ground is to say, look, it very much depends on what you're looking to do with us. The minimum amount our clients would spend looks like this, can range up to that, depending on what you're looking to do, but we'll go into that in the next call if that's all right. Or the third bit would be just to give them a price. If you've got a price, look, it's £30 per month, give or take. You know, and again, we can run through that and what's included in that in the next call. All right, so again, I'm not just giving the price, I'm moving it through to the next part of the conversation, and I'm being assumptive that that's okay. Remember, our objective is to find if there's a fit. So if somebody's going to say, whoa, £30 a head, we haven't got that budget. Okay, I'll do my discovery around that. Okay, so what makes you say that? When you say you haven't got that budget, is it you haven't got it aligned with the budget? Is it not a budget line for it? Or is it affordability? Or okay, fine. When you said that 2 out of 12 SDRs aren't hitting target, do you think you'd be able to afford it if 5 out of 12 SDRs were hitting target and the extra revenue might drive it? Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Okay, cool. You know, and we're into something. So hopefully that helps. I don't think that was a perfect example, Ollie, but certainly my mindset would be to address it and then to move through to the next part of the conversation.
Olivia's just asked if you can go back to the slide with the objections, because she was just making a couple of notes on there.
Yeah, sure can, no problem. There you go. Again, they're not the right examples for you guys. You have to build your own one. The important thing is diffuse, statement, and it can be 2 statements. That's all right. And then ask a question. Whatever your next best question is, keep the question reasonably broad. Remember, your goal off the back of an objection is to acknowledge the objection, make them feel comfortable with it, and get back into discovery. All right, so you've got to earn the right to get back into discovery by acknowledging it, but then you want to be back in discovery and you want to just, it's almost like you say, hey, thanks for your objection, I've acknowledged it, we're good, we'll come back to that in a minute. Now I'm just going to ask you questions again. So next question, Olivia, it's the same person. How do you answer a general, I'm not interested after discovery? If after discovery, they're not interested, I would argue discovery wasn't good enough. So what I would do in that scenario is go back, listen to the call recording of that call, and try to identify with a colleague, a peer, a line manager, what did I not ask? Where did I not dig deep enough? When they gave me a couple of pain points, could I have asked more questions about those pain points to get them on that journey? And it feels like if that's genuinely happening, you probably haven't got them on the journey to realizing that's a problem that they need to solve. But what I would do is probably say to them, look, totally understand, that's fine, not a problem at all. Obviously, I get a fair amount of people telling me they're not interested every day. As a sales rep, you probably appreciate that. Tell me, out of interest, you mentioned that you had 2 out of 12 of your SDRs hitting target. What would have to happen for that to be for that problem to be big enough for you to be interested in some help around it? Now, again, I'm thinking on my feet here, I'm making it up. But the point here is I've done the same thing. I've diffused, but that's absolutely fine, not a problem. I made a statement. Loads of people I speak to say exactly the same thing. And tell me what would have to happen to is a nice open conversational question. I think what you're doing is getting to the why. It's a bit like the part earlier where we transition into questions. I don't know enough about your situation to know something like this might make sense to you. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of quick questions? No, thank you. Tell me, out of interest, what stops you from saying yes to wanting to do that? I think you can apply that here. Look, absolutely fine, not a problem at all. Tell me what stops you from saying yes to moving our conversation forward, given you've openly said to me you've only got 2 out of 12 SDRs hitting target. Is there something I could do to help move this forward? And I think, you know, that kind of approach, you earn the right to ask why at that point. But from a self-development perspective, I'd definitely be going back in and listening to that call and seeing it's a great coaching opportunity, because that doesn't happen if you've done the right amount and the right quality of discovery earlier and you've brought the prospect on that journey where they trust you and where you're making a recommendation that this is the right next step, given the problem that you understand that they've got, and then they're saying no, it feels like there's something earlier in the conversation that hasn't gone as well as you would have liked. Any other questions, Ish?
Just going back to Holly's point about cost, I think obviously that's going to be a big thing for decision makers, and they'll be thinking to themselves, can we afford this? But really, if we've done our discovery properly, we've asked the right questions, we've uncovered pain points, they'll be thinking, you know, can we afford not to do this? And that's where we want to get their mentality to.
Yeah, love that, love that. Guys, I'm conscious that we are half an hour early. We've kind of got through the core of this presentation. I'm keen, if you've got any more questions, we'll hang here for 5-10 minutes and we'll continue to answer those questions. If we want to use the whole half an hour, that's great as well. Happy to stay here for that. If there are more questions, happy to run back through things. You guide us through the comments if you've got things you would like to do. Before we get into that though, I know we're a bit early, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us. There are a couple of things I'd love for you to do if you found today useful. Number one, I've said it already, please follow me on LinkedIn, follow our business, Air Marketing, for more sales, cold calling and prospecting, SDR related content. Equally, I'd love for you to post about this on LinkedIn. I'd love for lots of people to be saying that they found this useful, if of course they did. I'd love for you to tag me, tag Isheeta, and tag the organisation in those posts on LinkedIn and let people know that you found this useful. I would really genuinely appreciate that. And another reminder that we are hiring right now. We've got loads more context, loads more training materials. I think we've got about 40 odd training sessions around prospecting that we run within our organisation. We are currently building out our sales academy as well, but we're hiring right now for BDs and SDRs. Obviously that want to be selling over the phone, because we use the phone as our primary tool. So if you're interested in talking to us about that, you can talk to our internal recruiter. His name's Jason Kana, K-A-N-A, and his email is jason.k@air-marketing.co.uk. And remember, if it's not right for you, that's absolutely fine. But if you do refer somebody to us on the day they start working for us, we will pay you £600. We actually pay in like a voucher, a debit voucher thing that you can spend pretty much anywhere. £600 worth having for introducing somebody to us, and we do it on the day they start, not after probation and all that kind of stuff. So please do refer, and that can be refer somebody you know personally, or it might be that you want to put a post out on LinkedIn and say, hey, by the way, they're hiring, and comment or whatever. And if people come through to us that way, then we'll happily pay out. Like everybody, we're hiring fast for SDRs, and it ain't the easiest task in our business, that's for sure. So we're keen to really make the most of this opportunity, and hopefully you're happy to give back in some way from that perspective if you've got value from today. So jason.k@air-marketing.co.uk, or check out the website. We've got a careers page on the website. You can apply or point your friends or contacts, you're always there. So let's go through some more points, Ish. Scott looks like he's the first one to come up on the screen. I'm just going to stop sharing the presentation, I think, because that'll make it a bit easier. Could you please provide some short tips on beating the gatekeeper? Never heard that terminology before, beating the gatekeeper. Okay, really quickly. So mentality around gatekeeper is really important. I think there's one of two camps that you have to be in. You either have to be in the friendly, warm, make friends with them, want you on my side, or the don't give you anything, gonna hold back, gonna be really assertive camp. I think when you blend the two, it can get a bit confusing. So quick tips, I'm thinking off the top of my head. Number one, don't sound too much like a salesperson. Don't be overly enthusiastic in your tone. Don't sound like you haven't earned the right to be there. Number two, have the mindset that you can't get through every gatekeeper, and that's okay. It's genuinely okay to not get through every gatekeeper. It's a bit like the finding a fit thing. You won't always find a fit, and being okay with that and having the right expectations. It is a really important part of the role. Number three, either decide on whether you're going to be warm, friendly, I want you on my side. Hey, Ish, it's Owen calling from Air Marketing. Just looking to get hold of Scott Cook, please. I'm warm and friendly, all that sort of stuff. Or I was Owen calling for Scott. Straight to the point. And I think that's a personality type. I'm always more on the warm side. That's just my personality. But some people can really play that, not giving much away. Be prepared for the questions that you're going to get. What are the questions you're going to get from gatekeepers? Why are you calling? Where are you calling from? What's the call about? Have they spoken to you before? They're the 4.
Are they expecting your call? That's another one that we get a lot.
Yeah, point. Are they expecting your call? Be prepared for those. You know, have them written down like you would your objection handling. You know, and I go back to the objection handling. Write those things down. Have them there. Be consistent with them. So, are they expecting your call? Don't go, no. You know, either deliver no, they're not expecting it right now. You know, that just leaves a little bit of, well, maybe they will be expecting it another time. And I like to leave a little bit of mystery in these pieces, so I'd never say, oh, no, we've not spoken before. But I wouldn't lie either. I wouldn't say, yes, you're expecting my call. I know some people approach that a different way. I would be saying, no, they wouldn't be expecting my call right at this minute.
Yeah, I just say something like, we haven't got anything scheduled in. I was just calling on the off chance they were free.
Yeah, brilliant. So it's not saying they don't know me, all that kind of stuff. If they say, what's the call about? Now, here's the thing, right? If we give gatekeepers too much information, they're only empowered to say no. They can't book a meeting with you, or you can't book a meeting with them, maybe it's a better way of putting it, but they can say no, go away. So we don't want to oversell here. We don't want to get into here, have all the information. So if I'm the gatekeeper and I say to Isheeta, look, what's the call about? I need to have a line that I've prepared, ready to go. So I always use the accountants thing. So I'd say to them, oh, look, it's just about finance and a tax matter. So what I'm doing is leaving a little bit of a sense of this might be personal, or it might be something that's important. I'm not saying it's that. And equally, I'm not saying I'm trying to sell something. I'm trying to sell accountancy services. You can't get through gatekeepers all the time. It's about increasing your chances by 1%, 2%. 1 in 10 people you say that to will say, okay, it sounds like I've got to put it through. And that might be 1 in 10 more than you would have otherwise spoken to. But what I wouldn't be saying is, I'm phoning to speak to you about our accountancy services. That's clearly a sales call. I'm not going to put you through. So there's that. Is there another example?
It's just like with decision makers as well. It's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it. If you come across nervous, or that imposter syndrome of I'm about to try and make a sales call, they'll pick up on that straight away, because that's what they're trained to do. Yeah,
absolutely. Next question. I hope that's useful, Scott. And throw your gatekeeper tips in, guys. There isn't a right or a wrong, but I think it's about choosing your style and being prepared for those questions. Olivia said, could you please provide some short tips? No, sorry, what was it? What would have to happen to make this I missed the last part of that question. Thanks for mentioning. No problem, Olivia. I think I'm just going back to it. So what would have to happen to make this important enough for you to progress this conversation, or for you to take a look at some outside options, or some options that you don't have available to you right now? Hope that's helpful. That's the sort of approach that I would take to that if they're not saying yes to the close at the end. Gurpreet, with costs, you also break this down on a daily basis and provide the daily amount, which would sound more reasonable. Yeah, I think it's a valid point. You can do that. You can break it down. It's like the old classic, something's $9.99 in the shop instead of £10. There's a psychology behind it, starting with a 9 versus a 10. And I think it's a really good point, particularly if you're selling into enterprise in big numbers. You don't want to do a say it's going to be 400 grand. If it's 30 pounds a rep per month, let's talk about the 30 pounds per rep per month. They can go and do that maths later. Does your team make calls to business landline numbers? Do you think it's worth it? Yes. See if we can get direct dials, if we can get mobile numbers, then we would always prefer to have those, but you don't always have those. And we don't always have that luxurious position. So do I think it's worth it? Yeah, statistically across our business, we measure what we call dial to connect ratio. So the percentage of times we dial a number and we get to speak to a decision maker. Where we've got mobile numbers, that can be as high as 20, 25%, 30%. And if you think it can be, on any given day, it can be a lot lower than that too. If you think about that, if I phone my mum 5 times, she probably only answers once or twice, because the rest of the time she's doing something else. So, why would that be any different with people that we don't know? So you're never going to get 40, 50% contact rates on an ongoing basis, even if you're phoning direct dials, because people still have other meetings. They still go to the toilet. They still go for lunch. They still do things. They're still in the middle of something and can't be bothered to answer the phone. But yeah, roughly speaking, 1 in sort of 10 to 12 calls, B2B, mid-market, will connect with a decision maker. For into enterprise, C-level, that might be 1 in 20, 25. But I think there's a lot of American content that's screaming about 2% contact rates at the moment. And it is really hard in the US. It is running at 2 or 3%. In the UK, B2B, with skilled sales reps who understand the difference between getting through a gatekeeper and the things you can do to improve your chances, and just saying, can I speak to that person? you should be running at somewhere between 1 in 10 and 1 in 12 calls connected with a decision maker. Worst case, 1 in 15 to 18. So is it worth it? Yeah, if your sales values are big enough and you're good when you get hold of a decision maker, absolutely. If you've got short sales, low sales values, high cost per acquisition is not going to make sense, and outbound isn't going to be the right strategy, full stop, regardless of whether it's mobile numbers or not. Dive in if you want to add anything. Holly said, if you get a voicemail, would you leave a message or not? Short and sweet words, but not saying too much. Yeah, it's a hard one. Because we're an agency, there's a bit of a logistical challenge around that in terms of you can be dialing or phoning on behalf of more than one company, and you get calls coming in, you don't know who it's from and all that sort of stuff. So we don't, on the most part. If I was in-house, I'd certainly be testing it. My experience is rarely do people call you back. So if you are going to use a voicemail, leave a voicemail, I'd see it as a branding rather than a sales exercise. So
I think we also miss the element of surprise there as well. So someone might think, oh, it's a sales call. I know that person's someone trying to sell me something. I'm not going to pick up the phone. Yeah. Whereas on another day, they'll pick up the phone and be interested once they hear what it's about. So
yeah. Really good point. So I think, like anything, it's going to be different for different people. Definitely test it if you want to do that. There might be a company policy around it. But if you are going to leave a voicemail, do not say, hi, Ish, it's Owen calling from Air Marketing. I wanted to talk to you about our services. Don't sell. Just say, hi, Ish, it's Owen calling from Air Marketing. I'm going to give you a call another time, so no problem at all. The little Air Marketing, maybe there's a little bit of recognition, whatever. Maybe they're on the website, and when you call. And you can, of course, use that in your gatekeeper work. So, oh yeah, no, I left him a voicemail yesterday, I'm just getting back to him. It's a really nice way to go, oh, they know each other. It's in the wording there. I left him a voicemail yesterday and I'm just getting back to him. Suggests that they phoned me and left me a voicemail in the meantime, we've missed each other. Or, yeah, we've actually been playing a bit of phone tennis, we've been trying to get hold of him. Again, it's just throwing phrases out there, but it makes a gatekeeper think, oh, sounds like they know each other. And it increases the chance. Now, there's a chance they might dig in and ask for more detail. And I haven't lied. I haven't said, he's phoned me, left me a voicemail. I'm leaving that to the imagination, but there's a chance they might think that way. We'll call recording, we'll share that. The recording, absolutely, we'll share that. Brian, I haven't read the question, but it looks like he's got a question mark at the end. Do you see better results when you email a prospect first before reaching out over the phone versus calling them up and following up with emails? Sometimes and sometimes not. And I think, look, I'm actually going to put a post out on LinkedIn today. I've been thinking about it for the last week about the answer to every question in sales, unfortunately, is it depends. And it's like, there is no right or wrong. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes, it depends on the quality of the email, for starters. You can have a negative effect with this, though. If you send an email, which looks like I'm going to phone you, and I'm going to try and sell you something, they can actually avoid your call. Because if they remember the brand, it's a bit like leaving the voicemail piece and the element of surprise-ish, going back to your point. If they remember the brand, they're thinking, oh, they're sending an email as well, they're going to be selling to me. Switch off, no thank you. And you can actually impact on connect rates and answer rates by doing that. So that's something to think about. Obviously, if you've got a shit hot email that gets people really excited, and yeah, go for it, absolutely. What I would say is if you are going to send an email, don't make the opening of your call, hi Brian, I sent you an email, have you seen it? Right? Because all we're doing is starting with a sales pitch, but also, more importantly, they probably haven't, because statistically, fewer people open an email than don't. So they probably, majority, haven't seen that email or opened it. And then,
or they've looked at it, glimpsed it, and then left it.
Yeah. And then you're starting a conversation by filling that first 7 to 10 seconds we talked about with something that doesn't add value. So I wouldn't take that approach. There is one last point of this. If you do it and you're using analytics to see if people opened it, there's a great way of prioritizing your prospects. So there is some value if you use technology around this. If I send emails and I can see that if she's opened the email 3 times, she's forwarded it to a colleague. If I've got 100 prospects to call, guess who I'm phoning first? I'm phoning Ish first. So there are some benefits to it. So again, try, test. I think if you've got great email content and it's really compelling and all that kind of stuff, yeah, absolutely. If you're not great at email, don't go sending things, and certainly don't refer to it at the beginning of the call. Harry, love that. Thank you. Great insights. Really appreciate it, and appreciate the feedback all the way through today. I think we're at the bottom of the questions. I'm going to give everybody 2 more minutes in case there's any more questions. There you go. Fatnam, earlier, related to Scott's question, how important do you feel about the role of emotions in B2B sales. Yeah, very. So I'm quite an emotional guy. When I first started selling, I won't tell you how many years ago, over the phone, I found it really hard. I was not the best. We weren't called SDRs in those days. We were called telesales reps because we didn't have email. In fact, I think we still use fax. No, we absolutely, if you know what fax is, that is, by the way, we absolutely need to manage our emotions. And I think I talked earlier about disconnecting from the outcome. If success is not dictated by whether you do or don't get a meeting, you're far more likely to be able to disconnect emotionally from it. But the fact is, you will feel emotions, even to this day, and I've been selling for 15, 16 years over the phone. I still feel emotion when I get rejected. I still feel emotion when somebody says no, or when they buy from a competitor instead of us, or whatever it might be. But the difference is you learn how to control that emotion, and you learn how to overcome it through experience and through maturity and all that kind of stuff, and just having mechanisms to do that. So, you know, it is no surprise that one of the things you need to do straight away is pick up the phone and have another conversation if you get rejected. The faster you do that, the better you feel. The interesting thing is it's totally counterintuitive. So you have to practice that as a skill, but it is absolutely important, managing emotions.
Yeah, I also think that a lot of sales are based on emotions, and at the end of the day, people buy from people. So you're making that emotional impact in that person's day when you're calling them up. So yeah, I think it relates in that way too.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, some people don't have emotions as strongly as others. And if you're lucky enough to be in that scenario, maybe it's not lucky in other parts of life, but it certainly is lucky if you're making cold calls. You probably find it fairly easy to do that kind of stuff. What I would say is it doesn't matter if you're emotional, and I would never try and switch that off, because that's you as a person. It's about finding mechanisms to deal with it and manage it, and to understand what those emotions are, that ultimately they don't matter. You know, they don't actually matter. They matter within you at that moment, but if you can learn to acknowledge them and move past them, you know, you empower yourself to go and be successful despite the fact that they're there, and they're probably a benefit to you in other parts of your life. So yeah, I've got no problem with being emotional and being a successful salesperson. I think you can be both, but you do need to learn that they're there and acknowledge them. Father's had another comment. I meant the emotions more like making a prospect feel the pain on an emotional level. Yeah, I think you just touched on that issue, right? It's about, you know, if you can make prospects realise that the problem that they've got is big enough that there's a consequence at the end, and they attach an emotion to it, they are far more likely to say yes, absolutely. So I think that's a really valid point. So emotions play an important part on both sides. And of course, you know, prospects feel all sorts of emotions. When you think about cold calling someone who's not expecting it, what's the first emotion that they get? Probably anxiety, annoyance, frustration, impatience. You know, you've just called me, I'm in the middle of something, I don't know who you are, what do you want? Bit aggravated, and you've got to get them from aggravated to trust, connection, rapport, friendliness, openness. You know, there's a journey we need to take prospects on, and it's really important that we acknowledge that. Ish, I think we are out of questions. Unless there's anything I've missed or any other points you'd like to make, I think we can head towards a wrap up now.
No, I think I just want to say thank you to everyone who commented and, you know, got really involved and really stuck in. I think it's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely loved it. We love doing this kind of stuff. And as I've said, please post about it on LinkedIn. Please follow me, follow Air Marketing, follow our content. And remember, we are hiring. If you love this content and you want to learn more about it, the best way to do that is to come and be a part of our team, and we can teach it to you every day. But if that's not right for you, and of course it won't be right for everybody, my job is just to find if there's a fit. If there isn't a fit, that's fine. Maybe there's a fit with somebody you know and you have to recommend. And as a reminder, we pay a £600 reward in debit vouchers that you can spend anywhere on the day that they start. So recommend friends, colleagues, family, anybody, whether they're starting out in sales and you think they can learn from our coaching, because we do take people at entry level, or whether they're an experienced SDR, we'd love to hear from them or from you. Guys, I'm going to wrap that up 10 minutes early. Thank you so much. Go and grab some lunch if you're here in the UK. Thank you so much for those of you that have joined us, particularly those in Dubai and the US and Australia and all around the world. Genuinely enjoyed the experience today, and would love to get your feedback. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I look forward to hearing from some of you. That's it. We're going offline. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day. We hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.